Let's fix this busted Sega Game Gear. Warm up the CRT, it's time for another episode. Today we're just going to hang out together and fix my ancient Game Gear. I got the Sega Game Gear when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old. I don't remember exactly, but it is a mess. I have no battery covers for it. The panel or the glass, the whatever you want to call it, is all scratched up on it. And of course, like most old Game Gears, plug it in, turn it on, nothing happens. The screen doesn't do anything. Big fat nothing. So I am going to repair it today. And what are we going to use to repair it? Well, step one is going to be a cap kit from Console 5. Not any sort of specific sponsor of that. They just happened to have the exact caps that I needed. That way I didn't have to hunt them down. I could just buy the kit and do it. I have both a replacement front panel or front glass and an LED upgrade for the backlight for this, so it'll the power on it will last a lot longer. And then I also, and that came from Handheld Legends, and I got replacement battery covers. I keep seeing keycaps, I don't know why. Battery covers from Retro Modding. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first things first, we got to get this apart. As you can see from the mangledness here, I have tried to get into this before with a pair of pliers, and I was able to get into it, but so we'll get this security screw out and bits cup. So we'll put the screw up in there. Now we will take the rest of the screws out. All of the screws are out. This should hinge open, and it does. There we go. So we're going to splay this apart. We need to disconnect these ribbons. Alright. Got one more right here. Are those keyed? They are keyed, so I cannot plug them in the wrong way when I put them back in. Okay, so those are apart. What is next? Now, we need to replace all the bad caps and replace them with good caps. And most of those are going to be on this side, so we're going to focus on this side first, although there are some over here. So we need to get these two little boards out of here. Okay. This is the main power board. Take the switch off there. Main power board is out of the way. So we got the audio board out. Well, almost. There we go. Audio board is out. There's the lower half of the shell. We can put that to the side. Bring in the main PCB shell. Take a look-see at what is involved in getting this apart. I think it's really just taking the screws out. I'll start with these two big ones, then those, then the ones on the outside. We'll go back to my number 1 screwdriver. Okay. There we are. There's the main board. It is out. Ooh. I have a cracked LCD. I hope the LCD is still okay. It's only cracked on the corner. It's probably still good, but we will see once we get the capacitors fixed. We'll see if this still works. Here is our cap kit. We're going to get these repaired first. So let's get these thingies out of here. And, ow! And don't touch the soldering iron to your finger like an idiot, or else you will burn yourself like I did. See? Don't do that. Is there any scuzz on the board underneath there? There's a little bit. Actually, I want to clean that. See? There was electrolyte on the board. Nasty. So that would be the power board done. Let's do the audio board next. Now the audio board is these surface mount electrolytics. So this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to smell the board. It doesn't smell like electrolyte, but that doesn't mean squat. So these are actually easier to replace to some extent than the than these guys because they don't go through the through holes. All you have to do is you heat up one side and just barely lift it very carefully. You heat up the other side and you can just swipe it off with the thingy. What is this thing called? It's the Bernie stick. Soldering iron, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, so the soundboard is done. So I'm going to kind of fudge this back together and see if fixing the sound and power boards actually solved the issue. Nope. Big fat nothing burger on the screen. Okay, that means we still need to do something with the main board here, so we will do that next. All of those capacitors have been replaced, so all that's left is to plug everything in and make it work. So hope that it works, really. I did actually remember, I said I had to fix that pin. I got that fixed. I didn't forget that. That's important so we can hear if it makes sound. So plug in the cartridge, flip the mess over. Got everything ready to go. Let's see if it functions. Ooh, there's video. And there's audio. Yeah, it works. Great. The video is kind of crappy. Turn the sound down so you can hear me. The video is crappy, of course, because the LCD screen on these is awful. You guys can barely see it. I have to crank it to where I can't see it so that you can. And also, here's something super disappointing. I'm just now noticing that, you know, this crack we talked about, it has broken the top part of the screen here. And so I have a part of the LCD here that does not even work. That's really frustrating because I don't have a replacement LCD for this. All I have is the LED backlight kit. So I'm going to have to go back out to the internet and get the replacement LCD kit for this. The best one out there is considered to be the McWills mod. Has some scaling issues that aren't quite perfect, but the color and resolution is excellent compared to the original screen. So I'm going to go out to the internet and order that, and at the next stop, you're going to just see me having it. But for me, it's going to be all of the forever times. It's going to take me a week to get that. So I'll see you in a little bit. So here's the replacement LCD screen in the box. Let's open it up. Ooh, a warning. Test before installation. Once the display is mounted, it cannot always be safely removed. Don't be an idiot. Blah, 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 blah. We can't be responsible if you burn your house down. Blah, blah, blah. Great. So what we've got to do is we have to get this installed into that. I'm going to do that real quick off camera because it's going to take about an hour, and when you come back, it'll all be done. Old LCD and backlight removed, along with a lot of the support components that are no longer required, and new panel is installed. Takes a lot of work, lots of fine detail, and lots of removal of tiny little components. I'm going to zoom in and show you some of the detail work that's required here. So hooking this up requires a lot of fine detail soldering down here along the original ribbon connector that connected to the original LCD screen to go off to, you know, feed signals for the new LCD screen. And for the most part, I used enameled wire because it's easy to do and it's thinner, so it would fit through this hole here in the board to make it run through pretty easily. It also tends to bend in place a little bit better. But for some certain signal wires, I used colored lines, so it would be easy for me to understand just visually what's going on. Like, you know, we've got red, and it's hard to see, but there's a black wire underneath there. Those are the VCC and ground pins for the panel. And then we flip over to this side, and we've got lots of little fly wires that have to go to different connections over here for this LCD screen to pick up the button inputs, because you can press certain button combinations to make the screen change modes, basically. Use this through hole here to do all of our line feeds to the other side. Got a couple more fly wires over here we had to connect, and these connect up in here. And I have those kind of tucked down underneath out of the way. And, you know, another fly here. And there's lots of little tiny resistors that had to be bridged. Lots of little details. This is all explained in the instructions. Not very well. The instructions, in my opinion, for the McWill LCD kit for this are not very well written. You have to read it back and forth and switch between the two different sheets several times to try to see, well, you're referencing this part, but the part's on a completely different sheet of the instructions, and you have to go hunt them down, and they're only referenced on one place in the picture, and just little things. I guess I'm just complaining, since I tend to write my instructions very thoroughly for my kits and things, but you know, I digress. I'm just nitpicking, so whatevs. So let's go ahead and get this thing put back together, but actually before we do that, we need to do one quick thing, and that is this. We need to replace this plastic actually, cover screen before we put this back together. So I'm going to do that now. Sidetrack time. Before I decided to put the new panel in, I wanted to examine a technique that I wanted to play around with to see if it would work. And it worked mostly. I just didn't do it well enough or take it far enough, but that's the learning process. This technique is the buffing and sanding of shiny plastics with sandpaper, buffing wheels, and all of that stuff to remove scratches or just for general polishing. And overall, it worked okay. So there were lots of little scratches up in here that you probably noticed on previous clips there. And I wanted to see, I just wanted to test my technique of buffing those out and getting rid of those scratches. So I did, and it worked out okay. A couple of things to note. The process I used sandpaper in increments of 220, 400, 800, and 1500. I then stopped at 1500 and used a buffing wheel, one of those things, a buffing wheel with some semi-chrome polish, and then polished it up. So it worked okay, but a couple of things. One, I did not go far enough in the first cut with like the 220 to get down below all of those scratches. And that can be hard, you know, when you're buffing that out with that sandpaper. Some of these little nicks, they seem to disappear, and you're like, oh, it's okay, but then it's not. Second thing, I did not go far enough with the sandpaper. I should have gone down to 3,000 and then maybe 6,000, because you can see there's still some rough spots right there along the edge. But generally, you know, it's not any worse than it was. And then the final thing, when I was buffing it with the semi-chrome polish, which isn't designed for plastic, but it doesn't eat the plastic, so that's fine. When I was buffing it with semi-chrome, here in this corner, you can see it right there pretty clearly, I dwelled too long. So basically, it's plastic. You can't really like buff it super high because you'll burn through the plastic, and that's kind of what I did in that corner in a couple spots. I managed to get most of it buffed back out, but it's still pretty noticeable. Overall, it's not any worse than it was. I just moved the bad parts from here to over there, but it is what it is. But that's a good learning process for me. So in the future, use a few higher grits of sandpaper, and probably use a rotary tool that has a, how can I put it, that has an adjustable speed, because this thing has one speed, 16,000, and that's a little high, so I'd probably want to do it like 8,000 or lower doing the buffing, just to ensure that I don't do any burn through on that. So let's get back to getting that screen panel put back in there. The new screen glass is installed, and it is pretty good. Of course, there are some differences from the original. The colors up here aren't as sharp. The text over here is a little bit thinner, and the Sega text and Portable Video's game system text are a little bit thinner as well. This is also a mostly flat piece, while as the original has kind of a bubble bezel to the edge of it. You can kind of see the specular highlight there. It's got a bubble. And there they are kind of side by side, so you can compare. But the upside to the new one is that it doesn't have any scratches on it. It's nice and pretty, so it looks good. On the whole, it's a good balance of you know, the offsets of the kind of not quite perfect text there is offset by the fact that it's clean. So what's left to do other than reassemble the whole unit and start to play some games? So let's get to it. All right, we are all
cleaned up, reassembled, and ready to go for a 30-year-old little gaming console. It doesn't look too bad. I put my little sticker I got with there on there just to be super fancy. So let's get the machine loaded up and ready to go. Get some batteries put in it. Oops. And our new covers. There we are. All finished and ready to go. But because this is a video game console, it wouldn't be a finished video if we didn't, I don't know, play it. So let's do that. All right, let's see how bad I am at playing video games. Very bad, that's the answer. Well, I finished the first level. That's good. Well, I think that's enough of a demo to show the machine is working. That is awesome. Cool beans. And with that, we have one old classic machine up and running again. You can't really argue with that. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on my latest adventures. You can also support me by becoming a patron over on Patreon or snagging some merch on jcm-1.com. Links in the description. Well, that's all for today's episode. While you're here, check out some of my other videos, and remember, 8 bits are all you need.